May 8, 1945. The acrid smoke of surrender still hangs over the German countryside as thousands of Wehrmacht soldiers lay down their weapons for the final time. In the chaos of collapse, exhausted men who once dreamed of empire now face an uncertain fate. Among them, tank gunner Fritz Enslin clutches a single photograph of his family as American soldiers guide him toward a transport truck. The spring air carries the distant rumble of Allied vehicles moving across the shattered landscape, and with each step, these German prisoners move further from everything they have ever known. The journey across the Atlantic unfolds like a nightmare in reverse. Packed into the holds of Liberty ships returning empty from European supply runs, thousands of German prisoners brace themselves for what they believe will be their final voyage. The same vessels that carried American might to European shores now transport the remnants of Hitler's armies to an unknown destination. U-boats still prowl these waters. The bitter irony is not lost on men who may be sunk by their own submarines. Yet as the days pass, something unprecedented begins to happen. The Americans serve them substantial meals, hot soup, bread, even meat. After years of ersatz coffee and turnip stew, many prisoners can barely comprehend the abundance placed before them. The war that was supposed to last 1,000 years has crumbled in just 6. By 1945, the Third Reich's industrial machine has ground to a halt. Its cities lie in ruins, and its people subsist on rations that grow smaller each month. German soldiers have not seen real butter in years, have forgotten the taste of fresh beef, and consider a single egg a luxury beyond imagination. The fatherland's propaganda machine has spent years painting America as a decadent nation, its people soft and its soldiers weak. Yet here, in the middle of the Atlantic, German prisoners encounter their first contradiction to everything they have been taught. Fritz Enslin remembers the weight of his Panzerwaffe steel hull, the desert sand of North Africa still embedded in his boots when the Americans captured him. He had served in Rommel's Afrika Korps, had witnessed the Desert Fox's tactical brilliance, and had believed, truly believed, in German superiority. The Americans, they were told, were mongrels, a mixed race of degenerates who could never match Germanic discipline and valor. They were a nation of shopkeepers and factory workers, untested in real warfare, soft from years of democracy and abundance. How wrong he was about to discover they were. The Pullman railroad cars that carry them from the American ports to inland prison camps provide the second shock. Clean windows reveal an endless landscape of undamaged cities, functioning factories, well-fed civilians going about their daily lives. No bomb craters mar the countryside. No skeletal ruins of once great buildings punctuate the horizon. This is a nation that has been at war for nearly 4 years, yet shows no scars of conflict on its homeland. The prisoners press their faces to the glass, watching American prosperity roll past like scenes from a dream, or perhaps a nightmare of their own delusions crumbling. Camp Leonard Wood, Missouri, emerges from the American heartland like a small city unto itself. As the train shudders to a halt, German prisoners step onto American soil for the first time, their minds racing with possibilities. They have heard stories, wild rumors about American brutality, about prison camps where enemies disappear forever. The Geneva Convention exists on paper, but what does it mean in practice? They prepare themselves for starvation, for forced labor, for the kind of treatment they know their own side has meted out to Soviet prisoners. They steel themselves for suffering. Instead, they find barracks with real beds, not straw pallets on concrete floors, not crowded bunks stacked 3 high, but individual beds with mattresses, blankets, and pillows. Fritz Enslin would later write that walking into his assigned quarters felt like entering the Hilton Hotel. For years, he had slept inside his tank, or on its metal hull, or in hastily dug foxholes. The simple luxury of a clean, warm bed seems almost incomprehensible. Around him, fellow prisoners move through their new quarters in stunned silence, touching the furnishings as if they might dissolve at any moment. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepares them for their first meal. The mess hall at Camp Leonard Wood buzzes with nervous energy as hundreds of German prisoners file in for their inaugural American dinner. They carry their metal trays with the mechanical precision of soldiers, expecting the watery soup and black bread that has sustained them through years of war. The serving line stretches before them, staffed by American soldiers who seem almost bored by the routine. This mundane efficiency itself seems alien. Where is the cruelty, the deliberate humiliation they expected? Then they see the food. Real butter. Not the synthetic margarine they have choked down for years, but actual butter, yellow and rich, piled generously on fresh white bread. Slabs of beef, thick and marbled with fat, steam rising from plates that seem impossibly full. Vegetables that still hold their color, potatoes mashed with actual cream, and portions that exceed anything they have seen since before the war began. Some prisoners stop dead in their tracks, causing a pile-up in the serving line. Others accept their plates in stunned silence, certain this must be some cruel joke, that the real prison food will come later. Fritz Enslin later describes this moment as receiving a dream meal that a reputable hotel could not have cooked better. He weighs just 128 pounds when captured, his body hollowed out by years of inadequate rations and battlefield stress. He studies the plate before him as if it might contain a hidden trap. Around him, fellow prisoners whisper in German, their voices carrying disbelief and something approaching awe. One soldier jokes that if they had known they would be treated this way, they would have sneaked across earlier instead of fighting until we ran out of ammunition. The butter becomes their obsession. In Germany, butter vanished from civilian tables by 1943, replaced by ersatz substitutes that tasted like petroleum and cardboard. Even Wehrmacht rations had contained no real dairy for months before their capture. Now, faced with unlimited quantities of genuine butter, some prisoners hoard it, wrapping portions in handkerchiefs and hiding them in their quarters. Others consume it by the spoonful, their bodies desperate for the fats they have been denied for so long. American guards watch this behavior with bewilderment. To them, butter is commonplace, unremarkable, hardly worth noticing. The abundance extends beyond food. The camp canteen stocks cigarettes, not the ersatz tobacco mixed with tree bark that German soldiers have smoked, but genuine American cigarettes with real tobacco. Coca-Cola flows from fountains like some impossible elixir. Ice cream, a luxury that disappeared from German consciousness years ago, appears regularly in the mess hall. Prisoners who have spent months dreaming of a single piece of chocolate now find Hershey bars available for purchase. The cognitive dissonance proves almost overwhelming. How can their captors, their enemies, possess such abundance while the mighty German Reich has crumbled into scarcity? Word of the American food spreads through the prisoner population like wildfire. Men who arrived expecting systematic starvation instead find themselves gaining weight at an unprecedented rate. One prisoner, initially suspicious of the generous portions, begins to keep a secret diary documenting his daily meals. Breakfast, real eggs, bacon, white bread with butter, coffee, actual coffee, not chicory. Each entry reads like a fever dream to men who have forgotten what plenty feels like. They begin to understand that this abundance is not special treatment reserved for prisoners. This is simply how Americans eat, every day, without thought or appreciation for luxuries that Germans consider mythical. The physical transformation proves as remarkable as the psychological one. Hollow cheeks fill out, sunken eyes regain their luster, and skeletal frames acquire human proportions once again. Fritz Enslin's weight climbs steadily, 140 pounds, then 160, then 180. By the time of his eventual repatriation, he will weigh 185 pounds, having gained 57 pounds during his captivity. He jokes that he has grown so fat that one can no longer see his eyes. But beneath the humor lies a profound realization. His captors have treated him better than his own government ever did. American abundance extends beyond the dinner plate into every aspect of camp life. Prisoners receive medical care that surpasses anything available to German civilians. Dentistry, eye care, treatment for chronic conditions that the Wehrmacht had ignored, all provided without charge or question. The Americans seem almost obsessive about prisoner health, conducting regular inspections and improving conditions whenever problems arise. German prisoners who arrived with untreated wounds, infections, and malnutrition find themselves receiving better medical attention than German officers had received in the field. The work assignments reveal another layer of American plenty. Prisoners labor on farms where food grows in abundance, where livestock graze on grass instead of scraps, where farmers discard produce that Germans would consider precious. They work in canning factories processing more food than entire German cities have seen in months. The machinery hums with efficiency. The workers appear well-fed and content, and the sheer scale of production defies everything they thought they knew about American industrial capacity. This is not a nation struggling to feed its people. This is a nation that has to figure out what to do with its surplus. The letters home become exercises in cognitive dissonance. How does a German prisoner explain to his starving family that his captors serve him better food than he received as a soldier in the Wehrmacht? How does he describe the abundance he witnesses without seeming to betray his homeland? Censors on both sides scrutinize every word, but the truth seeps through in careful phrases. I am well fed. The Americans treat us according to international law. Do not worry about my health. Between the lines, families read the shocking reality. Their sons and husbands are thriving in captivity, while Germany itself crumbles. The butter becomes a symbol that transcends its simple existence as a dairy product. For these German prisoners, butter represents everything their regime promised, but failed to deliver. It embodies the abundance that Nazi propaganda claimed Germany would achieve through conquest, the prosperity that was supposed to flow from victory. Instead, they find this prosperity in the hands of their enemies, freely given without conquest or coercion. The butter on their morning toast carries the weight of ideological collapse. How can the decadent Americans possess such plenty while the master race subsists on turnips and ersatz everything? As months pass, the prisoners begin to understand that their treatment is not anomalous. American soldiers eat the same rations, sleep in similar quarters, receive comparable medical care. The Geneva Convention, which German propaganda had dismissed as worthless paper, proves to be a living document that Americans follow meticulously. More than that, Americans seem to exceed the convention's requirements, providing amenities and comforts that go beyond legal obligations. They build libraries, organize educational programs, encourage artistic expression, and treat their captives with a dignity that many German soldiers never experienced under their own officers. The psychological transformation proves as dramatic as the physical one. Men who arrived believing in German superiority begin to question everything they thought they knew. If Americans are weak and decadent, how do they possess such industrial might? If democracy breeds chaos, why does American society function so efficiently? If racial mixing produces degeneracy, why do mixed American units demonstrate such competence? Every comfortable bed, every generous meal, every act of basic human decency chips away at the ideological edifice that Nazi education had constructed in their minds. Some prisoners resist this transformation, clinging to Nazi ideology despite the evidence before their eyes. They organize secret courts, intimidate fellow prisoners who express pro-American sentiments, and maintain that Germany's defeat was merely temporary. These true believers create an underground resistance within the camps, punishing anyone who dares to suggest that perhaps American democracy might be superior to National Socialism. But they fight a losing battle against the relentless testimony of their daily experience. Full stomachs have a way of undermining even the most carefully constructed propaganda. Others embrace the change wholeheartedly, recognizing that their entire worldview has been built on lies. They attend English classes, learn about American history, and begin to envision a future beyond Nazi Germany. These men understand that they are witnessing something unprecedented, a victor that treats its vanquished enemies better than their own government ever treated them. They write letters to families describing American kindness, American abundance, American mercy. They become unwitting ambassadors for a system they were taught to despise. The camp newspapers, published by prisoners themselves, document this ideological struggle in real time. Early editions express confidence in German victory, maintain Nazi rhetoric, and dismiss American prosperity as temporary. But as the war's end approaches and Germany's collapse becomes undeniable, the tone shifts. Later editions question previous assumptions, explore democratic ideals, and acknowledge American achievements. The evolution of these publications mirrors the transformation occurring in prisoners' minds, a journey from fanaticism to reality, from hatred to grudging respect. Fritz Enslin's diary entries capture this metamorphosis with painful honesty. "Today I realize that everything we were told about Americans was a lie," he writes in the summer of 1945. "They are not weak, not degenerate, not inferior. They have built something we never understood and never will understand if we cling to our old beliefs. The butter on my bread today tastes like truth, bitter and sweet at the same time." His words echo the experience of thousands of German prisoners confronting the collapse of their ideological framework. The abundance these prisoners witness extends far beyond their camps. Those assigned to work details observe American society functioning at a level they never imagined possible. Farms that produce surplus crops, factories that run efficiently without slave labor, communities where people seem genuinely content rather than merely obedient. They see American families eating the same quality food they receive in camp. American workers earning wages that allow them to purchase luxuries. American children playing in parks rather than learning military drill. This is not the America described in Nazi propaganda. This is something entirely different. The transformation accelerates when prisoners witness the liberation of concentration camps through mandatory film screenings. The footage of Bergen-Belsen, Dachau, and Buchenwald forces them to confront the true nature of the regime they served. Men who had claimed ignorance of the Holocaust's extent find themselves face to face with undeniable evidence of Nazi atrocity. Some refuse to believe, dismissing the films as Allied propaganda. Others break down entirely, recognizing their complicity in a system of unprecedented evil. But most experience something more complex, a gradual understanding that they have been both perpetrators and victims of a monstrous deception. The butter on their evening bread now carries a different weight. It represents not just American abundance, but American moral superiority. Their captors could have starved them, could have subjected them to the same treatment Germans had inflicted on Soviet prisoners, could have responded to Nazi atrocities with atrocities of their own. Instead, they chose mercy, chose to honor international law, chose to demonstrate that civilization could survive even in wartime. The simple act of serving butter to enemy prisoners becomes a statement about the kind of nation America aspires to be. As 1945 draws to a close, German prisoners face an uncertain future. The war has ended, but their captivity continues as America struggles with the logistics of repatriating nearly 500,000 prisoners. Some will remain in American camps until 1946. Others will spend additional years in British and French labor programs before finally returning home. But they will never forget their American experience, the abundance, the dignity, the fundamental decency of their treatment. They will return to a Germany transformed, carrying with them a new understanding of what democratic society can achieve. The butter becomes a recurring memory, a tangible symbol of American values that they will carry for the rest of their lives. Years later, many of these former prisoners will return to America as immigrants, choosing to make their homes in the nation that once held them captive. They will raise American children, build American businesses, and contribute to American society in ways their former selves could never have imagined. The butter that once shocked them with its abundance will become a mundane part of their American experience, but they will never lose their appreciation for what it represents. Fritz Enslin's final diary entry, written just before his repatriation, captures the profound transformation he has undergone. I came to America as an enemy, believing in German superiority and American weakness. I leave as a man who has learned that strength is not measured in military might alone, but in the character of a people and the values they choose to uphold. The Americans fed their enemies better than my own government fed its soldiers. They showed mercy where they could have shown cruelty. They demonstrated what civilization looks like even in the midst of war. I will never forget the taste of that first meal, that first piece of bread with real butter. It was the taste of my awakening to truth. The story of German prisoners in American camps illuminates a fundamental truth about the nature of power and the choices nations make in victory. America possessed the strength to crush its enemies utterly, to subject them to the same barbarism they had inflicted on others. Instead, it chose a different path. The path of laws honored even in wartime, of human dignity preserved even for enemies, of abundance shared even with those who had sought to destroy everything America represented. The butter served to German prisoners becomes a symbol of American exceptionalism, not in its arrogance, but in its restraint, not in its power to destroy, but in its choice to heal. In the great sweep of World War II's narrative, the story of well-fed German prisoners might seem a minor footnote. But for the men who experienced it, for the families who received their letters, for the communities that witnessed their return, it represents something profound about the nature of civilization itself. In choosing to treat their enemies with dignity, Americans demonstrated that democratic values could survive even the greatest test of war. In sharing their abundance with those who had sought to destroy them, they proved that mercy is not weakness, but the highest expression of strength. The butter melts on morning toast in countless American kitchens today, unremarkable and unnoticed by those who spread it. But for a generation of German prisoners, it remains the taste of awakening, the flavor of truth, the symbol of a nation that chose compassion over revenge. In the end, that choice may have done more to win the peace than all the battles won the war. It demonstrated that America's greatest victory was not the destruction of its enemies, but their transformation into friends.